Maya Ostrander's voice cracked as she lied to her mother through the phone. Something about a work emergency that would keep her from visiting this weekend, when the truth was she simply could not afford the train ticket after paying rent 2 weeks late. She stood outside the community center where she volunteered, unaware that the tall man leaning against the brick wall 20 feet away could hear every word, his dark eyes fixed on her trembling hands as she spun excuse after excuse into the receiver. Vincent Ortega had come to inspect the building his company owned, a quarterly visit his assistant usually handled, but something had pulled him here today. He watched this young woman with copper-colored hair twist the hem of her cardigan while her voice grew smaller with each fabricated detail. He recognized the weight of financial struggle in her posture, the shame that came with disappointing people you loved. He had been there once, a lifetime ago, before his commercial real estate empire had made him more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. Maya hung up and pressed her forehead against the cool brick, taking 3 deep breaths before straightening her spine. She turned and nearly collided with Vincent's chest. "Oh God, sorry," she said, stepping back quickly. Her eyes were still glossy from unshed tears. Vincent said nothing, just moved aside to let her pass, but his gaze followed her through the community center's front doors. He waited 30 seconds, then followed. Inside, the place buzzed with afternoon activity. Children splashed in the pool visible through interior windows. Teenagers clustered around computers in the media lab. Elderly people played cards in a sunny corner. Maya had disappeared into a back office, and Vincent found himself walking that direction, his expensive leather shoes silent on the worn linoleum. "Can I help you?" A woman in her 60s approached him, curiosity and slight suspicion in her expression. Wealthy men in tailored suits did not often wander these halls. Vincent pulled out his business card, though he said only, "Just looking around." The woman, whose name tag read Patricia, examined the card. Her eyes widened. "Mr. Ortega, you own the building," he nodded once. "We've been trying to reach your office. The rent increase you proposed, it's going to shut us down. We serve 2,000 families in this neighborhood. Please, if you could reconsider." Vincent held up one hand, a gentle gesture that stopped her mid-plea. He had not proposed any increase. His property manager had done that without consultation, something that would be corrected immediately. But he did not explain this. Instead, he said, "Show me what you do here." Patricia's hope flickered cautiously alive. For the next hour, she walked him through every program, introduced him to staff and volunteers. He learned that Maya taught art classes to kids 3 afternoons a week, that she had a degree from a prestigious art school, but had never been able to launch her career because she spent all her time working 2 other jobs just to survive. He learned this center was the heart of a struggling neighborhood, that it provided meals, education, health care referrals, job training, and hope. Maya emerged from the office carrying a bin of art supplies just as Patricia was showing Vincent the shabby studio space. She froze when she saw him, recognition flickering across her face. The man from outside. "Maya, this is Mr. Ortega. He owns our building," Patricia said. Something shifted in Maya's expression, a wall going up. Landlords and owners were not friends to people like her. "Nice to meet you," she said, her tone professionally neutral. She moved past them to set up the studio for her class starting in 20 minutes. Vincent watched her arrange paintbrushes and paper with efficient, practiced movements. Patricia continued talking about their programs, but he barely heard her. He was observing the way Maya transformed the dingy room with colorful examples of student work, how she tested each paint bottle to see which needed water added, how she smiled when the first child bounded through the door 15 minutes early. Mr. Hayes, you're here. Maya's entire demeanor changed, warmth flooding her voice. A boy of about 8, all energy and gap-toothed grin, rushed to her. Can we do the sunset painting today? You promised. I promised we'd try it this week, Maya corrected gently. Today we're finishing our portraits, remember? But sunset next time for sure. More children arrived, and Maya gave them her complete attention. Vincent stepped back into the hallway, but he could still see her through the window. She was radiant, teaching those kids, patient and encouraging, finding something to praise in every messy attempt. He pulled out his phone and made 3 calls. The first canceled the rent increase and reduced their current rent by 30%. The second authorized a $50,000 facilities upgrade for the community center. The third was to his assistant, telling her to clear his afternoon. Vincent left without speaking to Maya again, but his mind worked through possibilities during the drive back to his downtown office. He had built his fortune by seeing potential where others saw problems, by making strategic moves that paid off long term. This felt different, though. This felt personal in a way business never did. Over the next 2 weeks, changes started happening at the community center. The roof that had been leaking got repaired. New equipment appeared in the gym. The pool got fresh tiles. Patricia tried repeatedly to thank Vincent, but he never took her calls, having his assistant handle everything. Maya noticed the improvements with mixed feelings. On one hand, the center desperately needed these upgrades. On the other, she worried about what they might cost. Rich men did not give things away for free. She had seen enough of life to know that. She was locking up after her Thursday evening class when she found Vincent sitting in the parking lot, leaning against a sleek black car that probably cost more than she had earned in her entire life. "We're closed," she said, keys jangling in her hand. "I know." His voice was low, measured. He did not move from his relaxed position against the car. Maya waited for him to explain himself. When he did not, she felt irritation prickle up her spine. "Did you need something? Have you eaten?" The question surprised her. "What, dinner? Have you had it?" "I don't see how that's your business." Vincent finally pushed off from the car, and she realized how tall he was, easily over 6 feet, but his movements were careful, non-threatening. "There's a diner 2 blocks from here. I'd like to buy you a meal." "Why?" "Because you work 3 jobs and teach here for free, and you probably skipped lunch." Maya's cheeks flushed. "You don't know anything about me. I know you lied to your mother about why you could not visit. I know you're too proud to ask for help. I know you put everyone else first." His dark eyes held her steadily. "I know you have not eaten today." She wanted to argue, but her traitorous stomach growled audibly. Vincent's expression did not change, did not show smugness or pity, and that somehow made it easier to swallow her pride. "1 meal. Then you explain what you really want." "Fair enough." The diner was a neighborhood institution, run by a Greek family for 40 years. Maya slid into a booth and immediately felt awkward. Vincent, in his expensive suit, looked completely out of place among the worn vinyl and faded menus, but he seemed unbothered. When the waitress came, he ordered coffee and asked Maya, "What do you want?" She meant to order modestly, but he said, "Order what you actually want, not what you think you should," and somehow that gave her permission to ask for the chicken parmesan with a side salad and soup. "Smart choice," the waitress said approvingly. "You want pie after?" "We got lemon meringue fresh today." Maya glanced at Vincent, who nodded slightly. "Sure," she said, feeling strange and off balance. When they were alone, she leaned back and crossed her arms. "Okay, what do you want from the community center? What are all these upgrades going to cost?" "Nothing." "Nobody does something for nothing. The building needed maintenance. I had it done. That's not charity, that's basic property management. The rent decrease." The increase should never have been proposed. I corrected an error. Maya studied him, trying to find the angle, the catch. He sipped his coffee and looked back at her with infuriating calm. You're telling me you're just a good guy? The skepticism in her voice was heavy. No, I'm telling you I made business decisions about a property I own. Then why are you here? Why are you buying me dinner? Vincent set down his coffee cup. For the first time, she saw something shift in his expression, a crack in the careful control. Because I have not been able to stop thinking about you for 2 weeks. Because I watched you lie to your mother to hide how much you're struggling, and I wanted to fix it. Because you light up around those kids in a way that makes me wish someone had looked at me like that when I was young. The honesty of it struck her silent. She had expected smooth lies or aggressive flirting, not this raw admission. I don't know what you want me to say to that, she finally managed. You don't have to say anything, just eat your dinner. Tell me about your art if you want, or we can sit in silence. I'm good with that too. The food arrived and Maya realized she was ravenous. She ate while Vincent asked careful questions about her teaching, her own artwork, what had drawn her to volunteering. He did not talk about himself, deflecting whenever she tried to turn the conversation around. She learned only that he owned property around the city, that he had grown up without much money, that he preferred actions to words. You're very mysterious, she said over the lemon pie, which was indeed excellent. I'm private, different thing. Why are you interested in me? You could date anyone. Models, lawyers, whatever. I don't want to date anyone, I want to know you. It should have sounded like a line, but his delivery was so matter-of-fact that it landed differently. Maya set down her fork. I'm a mess. I can barely keep my head above water financially. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life, and I'm 26. I don't have time for dating or relationships or whatever this is. Okay, she blinked. Okay, you're not ready, I understand. Vincent pulled out his wallet and left cash on the table, more than enough to cover the meal and a generous tip. Thank you for having dinner with me. He stood and Maya felt sudden panic. Wait, that was it. He was just leaving. Hold on, she said, scrambling out of the booth. You're just giving up. Vincent turned back, and she caught something that might have been amusement in his eyes. I'm respecting what you said. But if you change your mind, Patricia has my number. He walked out and Maya stood there feeling confused and disappointed and not entirely sure why. She had told him no. She should be relieved he had accepted it. Instead, she felt like she had made a mistake. Over the following weeks, evidence of Vincent's influence appeared in subtle ways. A local gallery owner reached out to Maya about showing her work. The restaurant where she worked her weekend shifts suddenly needed fewer servers, but her hours and pay stayed the same, freeing up her Saturday afternoons. The dental work she had been putting off for years became mysteriously affordable when the office manager mentioned a scholarship program she qualified for. Maya was not stupid. She knew who was behind it all. She should have been angry about the interference, but it was hard to rage against things that genuinely improved her life. The gallery show actually led to selling 3 paintings. The free Saturdays meant she could visit her mother, finally. The dental work fixed pain she had been living with for months. She found herself thinking about Vincent constantly. His quiet intensity. The way he had listened to her with complete focus. How he had not pushed or demanded, but simply offered what she needed. 6 weeks after their dinner, Maya went to his office. The building was glass and steel soaring above the city. The lobby intimidated her, but she forced herself to approach the security desk. I'm here to see Vincent Ortega. You have an appointment. No, but my name is Maya Ostrander. If you tell him I'm here, I think he'll see me. The guard made a call, listened, and his eyebrows rose. Top floor, someone will meet you at the elevator. The ride up felt endless. Maya's heart hammered. A polished woman in her 30s waited when the doors opened. "Miss Ostrander." "I'm Rebecca, Mr. Ortega's assistant. Please follow me." The office suite was elegant and understated, all clean lines and quality materials without being ostentatious. Rebecca led her to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Vincent stood with his back to the door, phone to his ear, but he turned when they entered. His eyes met Maya's and he said into the phone, "I'll call you back," disconnecting without waiting for a response. Rebecca withdrew, closing the door silently. "Hi," Maya said, suddenly uncertain. "Hi." Vincent did not move from his position by the windows, giving her space. "You've been interfering with my life." "Yes. The gallery show, the work schedule, the dental thing. Yes, that's not normal behavior." "I know." Maya crossed her arms. "You should know it's not going to work. You can't just buy your way into someone's life." "You're right. I came here to tell you to stop." "Okay. But I also need to know something first." She took a breath, forcing herself to be as honest as he had been. "Did you do those things because you thought it would make me feel obligated to you? Or because you actually cared?" Vincent finally moved, but only to lean against the window frame, his expression serious. "I did them because when I see a problem I can solve, it's physically difficult for me not to solve it. I built a career on that instinct. But with you, it's more than that. I want to make your life easier because the thought of you struggling keeps me awake at night. I want you to have time and space to create art because the world should see what you can do. I want you to smile the way you smile at those kids, freely, without the weight you carry." He paused. "If that makes you uncomfortable, I'll stop, but I won't apologize for caring." Maya's throat tightened. "You barely know me." "I know enough. And I'd like to know more if you'll let me." She should leave. This was too intense, too much, too fast. Vincent was a millionaire with the kind of power that could crush her. Getting involved with him was a terrible idea. But she did not move toward the door. Instead, she walked closer to him, stopping a few feet away. "I'm scared," she admitted. "You're this successful, powerful person, and I'm just trying to keep my life together. What happens when you get bored with me? I won't." "You can't know that, Maya." He said her name like it meant something. "I'm 42 years old. I've built a fortune from nothing. I've dated enough to know what's shallow and what's real. What I feel when I'm around you is real. What I feel when I'm not around you and I'm still thinking about you is real. I'm not a kid. I don't get bored. When I commit to something, I see it through. This isn't a business deal. No, it's more important than any business deal I've ever made." The sincerity in his voice undid her. Maya closed the remaining distance between them and did something she had wanted to do since that first dinner. She reached up and touched his face, feeling the slight stubble along his jaw. He went very still, letting her explore, his eyes never leaving hers. "I changed my mind," she whispered. "I want to know you too." Vincent's hand came up to cover hers where it rested against his cheek. Yeah, but we do this right. Real dates, getting to know each other. No more secret interference with my life, at least not without asking first. Deal?" "And you have to actually talk to me. Tell me about yourself, not just ask about me." His mouth quirked, almost a smile. "I'll try. I'm better at listening." "I noticed." She let her hand drop and immediately missed the warmth of him. "So ask me." "Ask you what? On a proper date?" Vincent straightened from his lean against the window, and suddenly he seemed taller, more present, the full force of his attention on her. "Maya Ostrander, will you have dinner with me Saturday night?" "Yes, but not somewhere intimidatingly fancy." "I know a place." Of course he did. Saturday evening, Vincent picked her up in his car, and she tried not to gape at the sleek interior. He wore dark jeans and a button-down shirt, no tie, and somehow looked more attractive than he did in his suits. "You look beautiful," he said when she slid into the passenger seat, and the way he said it made her believe he meant it. The restaurant was in an old converted warehouse, the kind of place that did not need to advertise because people who knew good food found it anyway. It was elegant without being stuffy, the lighting warm and inviting. Vincent had reserved a quiet corner table. Over wine and the best pasta Maya had ever tasted, she tried to pull information out of him. He was a tough interview, deflecting and redirecting, but she was persistent. Slowly, the story emerged. He had grown up in foster care after his mother died when he was 8. His father was unknown. He had bounced between homes, some good, most indifferent, a few bad. At 15, he had started working construction jobs under the table, lying about his age. He learned the business from the ground up, literally. By 20, he had his contractor's license. By 25, he was buying distressed properties, renovating them, selling them for profit. By 30, he owned a legitimate real estate company. By 35, he was a millionaire several times over. "That's an incredible story," Maya said. "Why don't you talk about it?" Vincent shrugged. "It's in the past. I don't need credit for surviving. It's more than surviving. You built something extraordinary." "I built something profitable." "That's different from extraordinary." "Is that why you helped the community center? Because you know what it's like to need that kind of support?" His eyes met hers. "I helped the community center because you care about it. Everything else is just logistics." Her heart did a complicated flip. "You're impossible." "I've been told that." After dinner, they walked along the riverwalk, the city lights reflecting off the dark water. Vincent kept a respectful distance until Maya deliberately moved closer, and then his hand found hers, warm and solid. They talked about easier things, favorite movies and books, travel dreams, childhood memories. He was more open away from the restaurant's intimacy, his words coming more freely in the darkness. "Tell me about your art," he said. "What do you paint?" Maya considered her answer. "Moments, I guess. Times when something shifts or changes or becomes clear. I'm drawn to faces, emotions. The gallery show is all portraits of people from the neighborhood where I grew up. I'd like to see them. The opening is next Friday. You could come to that if you want." "I want." They walked for over an hour, and it felt like minutes. When Vincent drove her home to her tiny apartment in a building that had seen better decades, he walked her to the door but did not invite himself in, did not push for more. "Thank you for tonight," he said. "I had a really good time." "Me too." He hesitated, and Maya realized this confident, successful man was nervous. "Can I see you again?" Instead of answering, she kissed him. It was brief, just a soft press of lips, but it sent heat racing through her entire body. When she pulled back, Vincent's eyes had darkened. "I'll take that as a yes," he said, his voice slightly rougher than before. "Good night, Vincent." "Good night, Maya." She watched him walk back to his car and only went inside when his taillights disappeared around the corner. They fell into a pattern over the following weeks. Vincent showed up at her art classes sometimes, sitting quietly in the back, watching her teach. He took her to dinner, to museums, to a jazz club where live music filled the small space with warmth. He met her for coffee between her shifts. He was unfailingly respectful, letting her set the pace, but she felt the tension building between them, the want simmering under every touch and look. The night of her gallery opening, Maya was a wreck of nerves. She had changed outfits 4 times before settling on a simple black dress that her roommate swore looked amazing. The gallery was already filling with people when she arrived early. Her paintings hung on white walls, lit perfectly, and seeing them displayed professionally made her feel vulnerable in a way she had not anticipated. These were pieces of her soul on public view. Vincent arrived exactly on time, and the sight of him steadied her. He wore a dark suit but no tie, and he carried a single sunflower. "You remembered," she said, touched. She had mentioned once, weeks ago, that sunflowers were her favorite. "I remember everything you tell me." He handed her the flower. "Your work is stunning. You have not even looked at it yet." "I don't need to. I've watched you create. I know it's stunning." The opening was successful beyond Maya's hopes. She sold 5 paintings, received commissions for 3 more, and made connections with people in the local art community. But the moment that mattered most came when she found Vincent standing in front of her favorite piece, a portrait of an elderly woman from her neighborhood, laughing at something off canvas. He stood there for 5 full minutes, just looking, and when she approached, she saw something raw in his expression. "What are you thinking?" she asked quietly. "That you see people the way everyone deserves to be seen, with dignity, with love." He turned to her. "How much for this one?" "It's not for sale. Maya, I want you to have it if you want it." Vincent's throat worked. "You don't have to do that. I know. But this woman, Mrs. Chen, she reminds me of how you described your favorite foster mother. And every time I look at this painting, I think about how you look at me, like I matter, like I'm worth paying attention to." She touched his arm. "I want you to have it." He pulled her into his arms right there in the gallery in front of everyone and held her. Maya felt his heart beating against her cheek, solid and steady. "Thank you," he said into her hair. That night, after the gallery closed, Vincent took her back to his place for the first time. The penthouse was beautiful but surprisingly warm, filled with comfortable furniture and art he had clearly chosen for personal reasons rather than investment. "This is not what I expected," Maya said, taking in the space. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Something more cold and modern." Vincent hung Mrs. Chen's portrait in a place of honor above the fireplace. He stepped back, adjusted it slightly, then looked at Maya. "I spend enough time in cold, modern spaces. Home should feel different." She walked to where he stood. "Can I stay tonight?" His eyes searched hers. "Are you sure?" "Very sure." Vincent cupped her face in his hands and kissed her properly for the first time. Not the brief, gentle kisses they had shared before, but something deeper, full of the want they had been banking for weeks. Maya melted into him, her hands sliding up his chest to his shoulders. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "I'm falling in love with you," he said. "I need you to know that before we go further. This is not casual for me. It's not casual for me either." She kissed him again. "Take me to bed, Vincent." He did, and it was everything she had hoped. Vincent made love like he did everything else, with total focus and careful attention, learning what made her gasp and sigh, giving her pleasure before taking his own. Afterward, Maya lay in his arms, feeling safe in a way she had not felt in years. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," she said into the quiet darkness. Vincent's hand traced patterns on her shoulder. "Sometimes I sit in my office and look out at the city and feel completely alone, even though I'm surrounded by people. I built everything I have, and there's no one to share it with who knew me before, no one who remembers when I had nothing." Maya's heart ached for him. She turned in his arms to face him. "You're not alone anymore." "No," he kissed her forehead. "I'm not." They drifted off, tangled together, and Maya woke in the morning to find Vincent already up, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows with a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise. She padded over to him, and he wrapped one arm around her, pulling her against his side. "Good morning," he murmured. "Morning. How long have you been up?" "A while. I don't sleep much." "Insomnia. Old habit from when I was working round the clock to get the business going. Never quite broke it." Maya nestled closer. "What do you usually do with all that time?" "Work. Think. Recently think about you." She smiled against his shoulder. "What do you think about?" "Whether you're sleeping okay in that apartment with the furnace that rattles, whether you're eating enough, what you're painting." How soon I can see you again without seeming desperate. His voice was wry. I'm not good at playing it cool. I don't want you to play it cool. I like that you're honest. They spent the morning together, cooking breakfast, reading the newspaper, existing in comfortable domesticity. It felt natural, like they had been doing this for years instead of hours. When Maya reluctantly said she had to go teach her afternoon class, Vincent drove her home to change, then to the community center. "Will I see you tonight?" he asked when he dropped her off. "I'm working the dinner shift at the restaurant. I won't be free until late." Something crossed his face, quickly hidden. "Okay, tomorrow then." Maya hesitated. "You know I can't quit my jobs just because we're dating, right?" "I know. Even if you want to help, I need to support myself. It's important to me." Vincent turned in his seat to face her fully. "I understand that. I'm not trying to take away your independence. But Maya, if we're building something real, eventually I'm going to want to share my life with you. That includes the financial stability I've worked hard to create. We've been dating for 6 weeks. I know exactly how long we've been dating. I'm not asking you to move in or quit your jobs. I'm telling you how I think, what I want for the future, so you can decide if that's something you want too." His directness should have scared her. Instead, it clarified things. "I want to keep teaching at the center. That's non-negotiable. Everything else we can figure out. Deal?" Over the next few months, they did figure it out. Maya gradually reduced her hours at her other jobs as her art sales increased, though she suspected Vincent had something to do with how many commissions suddenly came her way. He did not admit it, and she decided not to push. Pride was one thing, but practicality was another, and the truth was his connections were helping her build the career she had always wanted. She spent more nights at his place than her own, until her roommate joked that Maya was basically subletting her own bedroom. Vincent gave her a key after the 3rd month, casual about it, but Maya understood the significance. He did not let people into his space easily. They had their first real fight 4 months in, over something stupid that revealed deeper tensions. Maya had been offered a teaching opportunity at an art school upstate, a prestigious position that would require relocating for a year. She wanted to take it. Vincent had gone very quiet when she told him. "Say something," she finally demanded. "What do you want me to say?" "That you're happy for me, that you support this." "I'm happy for you. I support whatever you want to do." But his voice was flat, controlled. "You're lying." Vincent set down his fork. They were having dinner at his place and the meal had gone cold while they talked. "I'm not lying. I meant what I said." "Then why do you sound like that?" "Like what?" "Like you're testifying in court. Like you're hiding everything you actually feel." He stood, pacing to the windows, his familiar refuge. Maya waited, giving him space to find words. Finally, he said, "I don't want you to go. I know that's selfish. I know this is an incredible opportunity, but the thought of you being hours away for a year makes me feel like I can't breathe." He turned to face her. "But I also know that if I ask you to stay, I'm putting myself before your dreams, and I swore I'd never be that person." Maya went to him, taking his hands. "So what do we do? You take the job. I drive up every weekend. We make it work. Or I turn it down and find something here." "Maya, no. This is exactly the break you've been working toward. You're what I've been working toward too, even if I did not know it before I met you." She squeezed his hands. "Let me think about it. Let's not make decisions when we're emotional." But over the next week, as Maya weighed her options, she realized something. The teaching position was amazing, but it was not her only path forward. She had options now, opportunities, momentum. And what she had with Vincent was rare, possibly once in a lifetime. She called the art school and declined the position, but negotiated a series of weekend workshops instead. Best of both worlds. When she told Vincent, he pulled her into his arms and held her for a long moment. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. But Vincent, we need to work on how you communicate. You can't just go silent and stoic every time something difficult comes up." "I know, I'm trying." "It's not easy for me." "I know it's not, but I need you to try anyway because I can't read your mind." "Okay." He kissed the top of her head. "I'll try." And he did. Slowly, Vincent opened up more, shared his thoughts and feelings with less prompting. He told her about deals that worried him, about the pressure of employing hundreds of people, about the loneliness of his life before her. In return, Maya shared her own fears and insecurities, her imposter syndrome about her art, her complicated relationship with her mother, her anxiety about money that never quite went away no matter how much she made. They learned each other's rhythms and needs. Maya learned that Vincent showed love through actions more than words, that he needed quiet time to process emotions, that he was actually funny in a dry, understated way once he got comfortable. Vincent learned that Maya needed verbal affirmation, that she created best in the morning, that she had a stubborn streak a mile wide when it came to her principles. 6 months became 8, became 10. They talked about future plans, carefully at first, then with growing certainty. Vincent introduced her to his business associates, and Maya brought him to family dinners with her mother and siblings. His quiet presence won them over quickly. Her mother pulled Maya aside after the first visit and said, "That man looks at you like you hung the moon. Don't let him go." "I don't plan to," Maya said. On their 1-year anniversary, Vincent took her back to the diner where they had their first dinner. They sat in the same booth and Maya laughed at the sentimentality of it. "I never took you for a romantic," she teased. "I'm not. I'm just sentimental about you." Over pie, Vincent pulled out a small box. Maya's heart jumped into her throat. He opened it to reveal not a ring, but a key. "I want you to move in with me, officially. Not just staying over most nights, but making my place our place. Paint in the second bedroom, hang your work everywhere, rearrange whatever you want. I want to wake up with you every morning." Maya took the key, her eyes stinging with happy tears. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." "Then yes, absolutely yes." Moving in together was an adjustment, but a good one. Maya transformed the spare bedroom into a studio, and Vincent loved coming home to find her covered in paint, utterly focused on a canvas. She cooked dinners that they ate together at the table, talking about their days. He surprised her with flowers and trips to art museums. She surprised him with tickets to basketball games and home-baked desserts. They had rough patches, moments where their different backgrounds and coping mechanisms clashed, but they worked through them. Vincent learned to use his words instead of withdrawing. Maya learned to give him space to process instead of pushing immediately. They built something steady and real, a partnership based on genuine understanding and respect. A year and a half into their relationship, Vincent asked her to marry him for real. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Maya was drinking coffee in one of his shirts, her hair a mess, no makeup, watching the sunrise from their windows. Vincent came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist and said, "Marry me." She turned in his arms, searching his face. "What? Marry me, be my wife. Let me be your husband. I want everything with you, Maya. The whole life. Kids if you want them, growing old together, building something that lasts." He cupped her face in his hands. "I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone. Marry me." Maya's vision blurred with tears. "You don't have a ring." "I have a ring. It's in my jacket pocket." But I could not wait anymore. I've been trying to find the perfect romantic moment for weeks, and then this morning I looked at you standing here and I just needed you to know. I need you to say yes. "Yes," she laughed through tears. "Yes, of course, yes." Vincent kissed her, then retrieved the ring, a simple, elegant band with a single perfect diamond. He slid it onto her finger and it fit perfectly. "How did you know my size?" "I took one of your other rings to the jeweler months ago." "Months ago? How long have you been planning this?" "Since about our third date, honestly, but I thought that might scare you off." Maya shook her head, smiling. "You're ridiculous. I'm yours." "Yes, you are." They married 4 months later in a small ceremony at the community center where they met. Patricia officiated, beaming with joy. Maya's family filled several rows of chairs. Vincent's side was smaller, a few close friends and business associates, but Maya's family adopted him instantly, insisting he was one of them now. Maya wore a simple white dress she designed herself, and Vincent wore a dark suit with a sunflower boutonniere. When they exchanged vows, Vincent's voice was steady but thick with emotion. "Maya, you taught me that walls are not the same as strength, that letting someone in does not make you weak. You saw me when I was used to being invisible. You stayed when I expected you to leave. I promise to spend the rest of my life earning the trust you've given me, supporting your dreams and loving you with everything I have." Maya could barely speak through her tears. "Vincent, you make me feel safe enough to be vulnerable, strong enough to take risks, and loved enough to believe I deserve good things. You listen when I talk and hear what I'm not saying. You're my partner, my best friend, and the love of my life. I promise to always choose you, to communicate even when it's hard, and to build a life with you that's full of art and laughter and love." The reception was joyful and chaotic. Kids from the art program running around, neighbors dancing to music from a local band. Food from the Greek diner served buffet style. It was not fancy or traditional, but it was perfect, a celebration that reflected who they actually were. Late in the evening, Vincent pulled Maya outside for a moment alone. They stood in the parking lot where he had first asked her to dinner, the community center glowing with light and music behind them. "Happy?" he asked. "So happy I could burst." She leaned into him. "Who would have thought that lying to my mom on the phone would lead to this? I would have. The moment I saw you, I knew you were going to change my life. You never said anything. I did not want to scare you off with how intense I felt." Maya laughed. "Vincent Ortega, you scared me off anyway, and then I came back because I could not stay away. Good thing, I would have kept trying. I know you're persistent when you want something, only when it matters." He kissed her soft and sweet. "Ready to go back to our party, our life, our everything." She smiled up at him. "Yeah, let's go back." They returned to the celebration hand in hand and danced until the early hours of the morning, surrounded by everyone they loved, building memories that would last a lifetime. The years that followed were full and rich. Maya's art career flourished, and she had regular shows at galleries around the city. She continued teaching at the community center, now with a fully funded art program thanks to an anonymous donation that everyone knew came from Vincent. He expanded his business but became more selective about projects, prioritizing developments that served communities rather than just generating maximum profit. 3 years into their marriage, they had their first child, a daughter they named Alina. Vincent was terrified during the pregnancy, convinced something would go wrong, but when he held his daughter for the first time, Maya watched his entire face transform with wonder and love. He was an attentive, devoted father, taking paternity leave and reorganizing his schedule to be present for every milestone. Maya painted less in those early years of parenthood, but what she created had new depth, informed by the profound love and exhaustion of raising a child. Vincent supported her completely, hiring help so she could carve out studio time, never making her feel guilty for pursuing her passion. When Alina was 2, they had a son, Marcus. Their family felt complete. The penthouse, once so quiet and pristine, filled with toys and laughter and the beautiful chaos of young children. Vincent embraced it all, reading bedtime stories, attending toddler music classes, building elaborate block towers just to have them knocked down. On their 5th anniversary, Maya gave Vincent a painting she had been working on in secret. It showed their family, all 4 of them, but reflected in the windows of the community center where they first met. Past and present, separate lives and shared future, all captured in one image. Vincent stared at it for a long moment, then pulled her into a fierce hug. "It's perfect. You're perfect. This life is perfect." "It's not perfect," Maya corrected gently. "It's real. It's messy and hard and beautiful." "Then it's perfectly real." He kissed her. "Thank you for taking a chance on a quiet millionaire who did not know how to say what he felt. Thank you for listening when I made excuses on the phone and deciding to do something about it. I'll always listen. I'll always do something about it when you need help. I know. That's why I love you." They stood together in their home, their children playing nearby, the life they had built solid and lasting around them. Vincent had learned to speak his heart, Maya had learned to accept help, and together they had created something neither could have built alone. A partnership, a family, a love story that started with overheard lies and quiet observation, and grew into something powerful and true and enduring. Years later, when their children were older and asked how their parents met, Maya and Vincent would exchange a look full of shared history. "Your father heard me making excuses on the phone," Maya would say, "and instead of ignoring it, he decided to help. I just listened," Vincent would add, "and then did what needed to be done." Without saying much, Maya would finish, smiling. "I said everything that mattered," Vincent would counter, pulling his wife close. "I said I loved her. I said I wanted a life with her. I said yes to every adventure." And that was the truth of it. Vincent had never been a man of many words, but every action had spoken volumes. Every quiet gesture of support, every moment of patient listening, every decision to show up and stay and choose love over and over again. Maya had learned that sometimes the most important things were not said but done. That devotion could be silent and still deafening in its intensity. They grew old together, their love deepening with each passing year. The passion of early romance mellowed into something steadier but no less powerful: friendship, partnership, complete trust. They weathered challenges together, celebrated victories together, built a legacy together through their art, their business, their children, and their continued work supporting the community that had brought them together. On their 25th anniversary, they returned once more to that diner, both of them gray-haired now, worn by time but still completely in love. They sat in the same booth, and Vincent reached across the table to take Maya's hand. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Taking a chance on me?" Maya squeezed his fingers. "Not for a single second. You're the best decision I ever made. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." "I know," she said with a smile. "You tell me every day, not enough. I should say it more." "Vincent, you say it in 1,000 ways without using words. The coffee you bring me in the studio, the way you still listen when I talk like I'm the only person in the world, how you look at me like I'm precious. You've been saying it for 25 years. I'll keep saying it for 25 more, 50 more, however long we get." "Forever," Maya said. "We get forever." And in the way that mattered most, they did. Their love story became the foundation on which they built everything else. It echoed through their children, who learned what real partnership looked like. It influenced Vincent's business decisions, making him a more conscious, community-focused developer. It infused Maya's art with emotional depth that touched everyone who saw it. It changed the community center, which thrived and expanded, touching thousands of lives. All because Vincent had listened when a young woman made excuses on the phone, when he could have walked past without getting involved. All because Maya had been brave enough to take a chance on a quiet millionaire who showed his love through actions rather than words. They had found each other against the odds, and they had chosen each other every day since. It was not a fairy tale. It was better than a fairy tale. It was real and earned and built through conscious choice and hard work and genuine care. It was a love story for the ages, written not in grand gestures but in consistent small acts of devotion, in listening, in doing, in showing up again and again, and it was everything they both needed, everything they had not known to dream of when they were young and struggling and alone. They had found home in each other, and they had made that home a sanctuary not just for themselves but for their family and their community. They had taken brokenness and built something beautiful. They had taken loneliness and created belonging. That was the real magic. Not that they met, but that they chose to stay. Not that they fell in love, but that they worked every day to remain in love. Not that they had a happy ending, but that they built a happy life, one conversation, one decision, one moment of choosing each other at a time. Vincent had been right all those years ago. He had known from the moment he saw Maya that she would change his life. What he had not known was how completely she would transform it, turning his carefully controlled existence into something wild and precious and infinitely worth every risk. Maya had been right too. She had been a mess, barely keeping her head above water, but Vincent had not saved her. He had simply offered support while she saved herself, and then they had saved each other in all the ways that truly mattered. Their story was not about a millionaire rescuing a struggling artist. It was about two people who saw each other clearly, who recognized something essential and true, and who had the courage to build a life together despite their different worlds. It was about listening and being heard, about action speaking louder than words, about quiet strength and loud love. It was about making excuses on the phone and having someone care enough to listen, to act, to change the trajectory of two lives with simple presence and steadfast devotion. It was about a love that started with overhead whispers and grew into forever. It was about coming home to each other, again and again, through every season and challenge and joy. And in the end, that was everything.